close. Then we will close with the closing remark by us. So without further delay, I would like to call on the MD CEO, Mr. Haruna Jallo Waziri, for his opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ogochukwu. And like you said, we should call you Ogo. You're welcome to our, I believe this is the third or fourth cybersecurity conference that we're hosting at CSCS. We do understand the importance of the internet and the capacity the internet has and the opportunities it gives. But as we do that, even from an individual perspective or from a corporation perspective, realize that as you go into the internet, you need to protect yourself. And hence, we strongly believe from a risk management perspective and from a technology perspective that cybersecurity is a key aspect of how we live as CSCS or as individuals. As you all know, there has been increased number of cyber crimes, cyber cases of attacks, and I'm sure when you open the newspapers every day, there's always one story around some ransomware being paid, fear of the internet, and all of those what I call sound bites that actually make us either fear the internet or love it. But we at CSCS are very much aware of those risks, and maybe that's why we're having this conference as it is. One thing I can tell you is that you have a whole lot of competent panelists today who are going to dissect more than I can in my opening speech the issues around cybersecurity and how we can protect ourselves. Today we have Mr. Harrison Naji, who is the Chief Information Security Officer of First Bank PLC. Well, Funola Odumoboni, I'm sorry, I probably pronounced them wrongly. She's also a Senior Manager in Cyber Services at Deloitte, who are our partners. Tobin Nadozie, who's our Divisional Head, Business Technology and Digital Innovation, CSCS. He's also here. We have Philmani, who is the RD West and East Africa Alliance Media Group, as well as Walid Bo Absi, I hope I pronounced that very well, who is the Business Development Manager at Shell Global. These are competent, very much do justice to the topic, and would help us, understand what we need to do and how to, protect ourselves from cyber attacks, as well, at least, discuss issues around cybersecurity. Of course, because of the IoT or Internet of Things, we're all constantly being exposed to possibilities around the world in terms of how we use those services. But what is very important is that exposure should bring also an adoption of the mindset that, look, things can go wrong and we need to protect ourselves. Billions of dollars are being paid as ransom, I think, for ransomwares and all the things that happen to companies or individuals. And I think it's apt for us to listen to these experts. And I'm sure, we'll learn something on how to protect ourselves as we do business, whether as individuals or as corporations. Thank you very much. And you're welcome to this our cybersecurity seminar by the CSCS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you for your time. So we'd like to move straight to the first presentation. This presentation is by Obiora. He will be representing Mr. Harrison Naji. Mr. Harrison Naji has sent his apology, but he will definitely be joining us as soon as he can. So Mr. Obiora, please go ahead. Mr. Obiora will be speaking on the challenges we face today, cybersecurity challenges we face today. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Let me share my slide. Okay, I'm not able to share my slide. I don't. I'm unable to share slides. I think the host should.
Okay, we'll do that. Please hold on. Please, Obiora, can you try now?
Can I share now?
Vera, please go ahead and share. Is he on the call?
Please confirm if you can see my slide.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'll be standing in for my boss, who is currently in a meeting, but he might be joining us before we end the session. Okay, well, I'll be speaking on the cybersecurity challenges we face today, and we'll be discussing a couple of threats that's ravaging the industry as we speak. So I'll share my outline now. We'll be looking at emerging technologies and threat outlook, cyber threats predictions for the year 2021, the notable cyber attack headlines this year, prevalent cyber threats in 2021, the impact and severity of these cyber attacks, and how we can stay resilient against cyber threats. Then we'll briefly look at the multi-layered and integrated defense strategy, how we can stay ahead of cyber threat actors. Then we'll conclude from there. So well, I would like to start with the emerging technologies and threat outlook. If we look at the digital landscape now, we see that while we have opportunity for digital transformation, we also know that this also gives cyber criminals leverage. Now also an opportunity for cyber criminals to carry out different kind of cyber attack, from Internet of Things to big data cognitive capabilities, to the cloud environment, remote work, the blockchain, artificial intelligence. While we are using artificial intelligence to automate defense, cyber criminals are also using it to automate their attacks. So it is an opportunity for us to transform our business, and it's also an opportunity for threat actors to also launch devastating attacks. So we also see the use of digital currency, cryptocurrencies in attacks. OpenAPI also gives opportunity for transformation in our business, and also create opportunities for cyber criminals. So I'll be looking at the threat predictions for the year. We could see from several research analysts, and we could see the lingering this year. There are predictions that COVID will lead to an increased insider threats within the organization, within several organizations. And it will create a lot of data breaches from the series of home network and work from home attack. We could also see a lot of system infiltration, dangerous, fileless, and ransomware attack. if you look at from the beginning of this year, from the first half of this year, there've been a lot of ransomware attack. It's like the in thing now, and a lot of security companies are also leveraging on this to sell their solutions. So we've also seen increased attack on key cloud assets, crypto platforms, supply chain, blockchain, IoT, open API, interconnected systems. We've seen enterprise software, remote work remote communication platform will be used as the key target for threat actors. We've seen a couple of these this year. These are predictions for this year. Increase the adoption of deepfake technology for complex phishing attack and impersonation. We're seeing increased advanced phishing, APT and DDoS attack, increased attack in a combination of zero-day exploits and artificial intelligence. If you're using Microsoft products, you understand what we've been going through with this. Increased use of advanced evasion techniques for complex attack. We also see increased adoption of 5G, which cause paradigm shift in cybersecurity, resulting in more voluminous DDoS attack leveraging on 5G. So these are just the prediction for this year, and we've already seen a lot of them happening already. Moving to the next slide. Okay, so these are headlines of notable attack that have happened within the year. So going through this, we'll see that almost every industry, even security companies, are vulnerable to attack. From water treatment, from healthcare industry, education, everyone is vulnerable to this kind of attack. So, but we'll also see that sometimes it takes a long, cyber criminals take their time to carry out their activities. A case in point is this SolarWind operation, so SolarWind attack. We could see that it started from September 2019, and it got to, it was actually disclosed in December, as in the organization found out about this attack in December 2020. So you could see the time that the cyber criminals had to carry out all their nefarious activities within the organization. So we'll look at also data privacy incidents this year. We've seen a lot of data breach, data leak, issues that are ravaging the industry, and no one is how will I put it? No, every industry is vulnerable to this. Yeah, but we'll also look at, before the end of the presentation, we'll look at how to defend against a number of these attacks. So we see the convergence of emerging technology fueling the proliferation of information and cybersecurity threats, from the increase in ransomware attack. If you look at this year, there's been over 1,000 firms have been affected every week. Some are disclosed, some are not. Email threat has, from last year, has grown by 64%. We see data breach in financial services for Q1, how much it has grown over the years from 2019 up to date. We've seen financial gains continue to be the main motive of breaches. Now we hear of double extortion or ransomware. So if you're not going to pay, they look for the highest bidder, they sell your data to them. So it's a win-win for them. You pay to get your data back, and you pay for them not to disclose your data. That has been rampant this year, from, if we see from the Colonial Pipeline attack and a number of other data breach. So we see data breaches at third-party firm, the Kasaya and others, and we see industries that are attacked most, especially in the US. So we look at the top cyber threats in 2021. Looking at the slide, we see that these are the major threats that have dominated the global landscape in the last few months. Ransomware threats, that's number one. We also saw, I think, this month, one of the big four, it's arguably, we saw Essential falling victim to ransomware attack, and a number of other big unknown security solution providers. We saw a number of supply chain attacks. We saw IoT attacks, insider threats. I think this is now taking shape. We sometime last week, or is it this week, we saw in the news where there's an email being sent to some employees to help them install a ransomware attack within their ransomware files, malware files within the organization, and promising them to get as much as $1 million. So this is the motivation to carry out those is there. So this has been on for, we know there's a lot of cyber criminals leverage on insiders to carry out their attacks. So this is one of the top threats we've been seeing for this year. We also see deep fakes and attacks on our cloud infrastructures, DevOps, and security and software as a service platforms. We also see a number of attacks regarding data privacy. So I'll move on to the next slide where we'll explain this in details. I won't want to spend a lot of time here. So this just shows the trend within the industry. The 50 million, the largest ransomware demand. We see that 7% of business being hit by ransomware just this year alone. And we see the total cost of ransomware in 2021. And we also see that in 2021, for every 10 seconds, that is, if you calculate all the ransomware attacks that happen, every 11 seconds, a company is hit by ransomware. This is just statistics shared by CloudWatch. So we could also see that a number of organizations are being targeted. So it's not peculiar to a particular industry. A number of governments, IT companies, financial, healthcare, education, they are all targeted. So it's a cause for worry for the industry. And let's move to the other top threat, supply chain attacks. We could see a number of these have happened this year, Kaseya endpoint. We will also see IoT attacks. How prepared are businesses? Most of IoT devices are built without security in mind. They're just built to perform a particular function. And we see that cyber criminals use this to gain foothold within organizations. And we also see insider threats. There are a lot of dynamics that could fall out from this, from malicious insiders to inside agents, people who are actually recruited by external parties. They recruit them, lure them into organizations to work for them, to disgruntled employees, to careless workers, people that are out of neglect or ignoring the rules of the cybersecurity policy, give cyber criminals foothold within the organization. They also see third-party insiders, those who misuse the assets that we've given them while they're working within our organizations. So I move to the next, which is social. This has always been there with us. And we all know that this is where cyber criminals leverage on the psychology of their victim to perpetrate their attack. So move to the next. I think that's the last. Okay, so we now look at the impact and severity of cyber attacks, from financial losses to legal repercussions to reputational damage, regulatory sanctions, inability to deliver critical service. Yeah, a number of organizations that were attacked, especially that got their systems encrypted, they were unable to render their critical services to disclosure of confidential information. We know for people that refuse to pay, people who fell victim to ransomware attack and refuse to pay, the cyber criminal cells their disclose their data online, post it, look for the highest bidder, or just paste it on open repositories. So now, how do we now guard against all this kind of attack? First, we have to prepare, be able to predict, prepare, and prevent a number of all these attacks by maintaining a state of informed preparedness in order to forestall compromises of mission critical systems. Here we're looking at anticipating this attack. Then we now move on to withstanding this attack, containing and defeating this attack. By doing this, we are able to continue essential mission functions, mission critical functions, despite successful execution of an attack. So even when we are attacked, we have the resilience to continue our business. Then we have to also plan to evolve. The way the business environment is structured now is not the way it was structured 10 years ago. So as the business digital landscape is transforming, we also need to transform along. Now most of our assets are moving to the cloud. We also need to plan to extend our security controls and processes to the cloud. Then we also need to plan to recover. Business continuity plans, disaster recovery. We need to plan that whenever we have we fall victim to cyber attack, we are able to restore our critical services, and we are able to withstand these attacks. So the number of other multi-layered and integrated defense that we could use, from governance to control to people and also technology. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. This combination of controls helps an organization to stay secured because it gives you a defense in-depth stance against cyber attacks. So I won't want to spend a lot of time there. So these are technical controls we could implement in line with the cyber kill chain, and also MITRE attack framework. So these are just security solutions that talk to each stage of the cyber kill chain. So I wouldn't like to spend a lot of time here. So, okay. So then this slide talks about the, this slide talks about the best practices we could use during this remote work. Now that we're moving, a lot of companies moving to remote work, we have to continue to protect ourselves, both health-wise and also to protect our companies. Wash our hands, sanitize, find and stick to a routine schedule while doing your work. Eat healthy, avoid social media distraction, committing to do more, set priorities, use a proper environment for your work. right now, organization data is actually at a higher rate now. People work from home, cyber cafe in the boss, in the kitchen, their neighbor's house. So we need to find a proper environment to carry out our work to avoid data privacy issues and all that, avoid crowds, take clear break, practice self-care and exercise, self-discipline, define boundaries. You already know your boundaries that you could take even within the organization and outside. You also need to be vigilant and stay connected at all times so that whenever something is wrong, you also need to be able to communicate with your peers. Then stay safe. So I don't know if this is the last slide. Okay, this just showed how we can balance the technical mitigation and our business needs. So while we are trying to defend our organizations, we try to understand that the organization is there to be profitable. We don't kill innovation. We don't kill productivity. So this just help us look at how we can balance our technical controls and defense strategy with the business needs of our organization. So I think that's the last slide. Thank you very much. I hope I'm able to do justice to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Obiora. Thank you for your presentation. In his presentation, he mentioned some of the threat 2021 predictions and every other thing. So I would like to inform all attendants that we will be launching a question regarding Obiora's presentation. But first, let me inform that we are giving all attendants the opportunity to win some interesting prizes. All you have to do is attend the questions that we are launching now. We are about to launch it now, if I can confirm. Yes, please. Please go to your, I'm sure you see it. We will be choosing a total of 2 correct answers, and we'll be announcing the winners before the end of the presentation and before the end of this workshop. So the question is up now, please. Thank you. So while we are about to go that, I would like to call on Fumi Layo for her own presentation. Fumi will be talking about the need to stay on top of cybersecurity. I would like to mention that Fumi is the Senior Manager, Cyber Risk Services, Deloitte. Thank you. Fumi, are you ready for us? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Should we wait for the polls or should I go ahead? Because I think the polls are still on.
Okay, we'll give them 5 more seconds.
Okay.
Then we'll end the poll.
Okay.
Okay, Fumi. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and well done, Obiora. That was a very detailed presentation. You've done most of the work for me, so I'm just here to just gist. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, CSCS, for the opportunity to present during this cybersecurity awareness session. And what I'm going to talk about is the need to stay. Why should you stay ahead of on top of cybersecurity? There are so many things competing for your time and attention. Why should you add cybersecurity to the list of things you need to stay on top of? So I have a brief outline. We'll look at the background, look at 5 questions that will help us address that need, and we'll conclude with what are the next steps and what we need to do. So in just to start it just going back and talking about cybersecurity, cybersecurity has to do with confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are the major tenets for cybersecurity. So when we're talking about confidentiality, so for example, if you don't want people to know your age, that means that age is confidential for you, and your age should not be published online because you don't want people to know your age. So confidentiality is ensuring that information that you want to be kept secure and safe and out of the public domain is actually secure and safe and out of the public domain. And integrity has to do with giving assurance as regards the correctness of the information you have. So I'm sure something that a lot of people will want to have integrity is the account balance, because you want to be sure that if it's 100,000 naira, it is actually 100,000 naira and not 1,000 naira, because they're making a lot of decisions regarding that. So integrity has to do with saying, okay, whatever is there, I want to be sure that it is correct. And availability has to say, are the systems available for me to use? Am I able to use the system? I'm sure a lot of people will have frustrations when they have to go and use an ATM and you find out that the ATM is not working or is not dispensing. That is a cybersecurity issue. It's an availability issue because the people are not able to, the system is not available for you to use when you need it. So we're going to be looking at 5 questions in order to stay on top of cybersecurity. And the questions are, why do we need to stay on top of cybersecurity? What do we need to be on top of? What do we need to know? When should we be on top of it? How can we be on top of it? And who is responsible for being on top of cybersecurity? So let's start with Dubai. Obiora has talked a lot, he has shown us a lot of facts about what is happening, statistics that are going on, and they are really mind-boggling because you just imagine that all these things are happening. Just to add to what he said, University of Maryland said that a cyber attack occurs every 39 seconds. So we've been on this call for a little over 30 minutes. So we divide that by 39 seconds, and you know the amount of cyber attacks that have occurred within this period. And we've seen that, and by Cybins, they said that human error is the primary cause of cybersecurity. If someone sent an email to you saying that you should provide information or that you should do something or that you should apply for something, and you don't know who the person is, you don't know what it's about, but the person is saying, do it now. So we'll go into detail about that in subsequent slides. And this is just showing some of the statistics, especially in Nigeria, that it's not about what happens around the world, saying, okay, that is happening in the US. Nigeria, it's also happening in our backyard. It's also happening to our neighbors. It's happening to our friends and family members. So cybersecurity is something that is very, very important, and we need to be on top of it. So what do we need to be aware of when talking about cybersecurity? The first thing we need to be aware of are what are the risks that I'm exposed to as a person. What are the risks that my organization is exposed to? So the first thing I'm going to talk about this morning is phishing. Phishing has to do with, you've gotten all those emails. Please find attached. I'm not expecting a word from the organization. You don't know where it's coming from. There was a friend of mine that said that he got an email from someone saying, look, I've been monitoring you. I've been monitoring your computer for the past few months with pornographic content, and I'm going to publish it online. And if you don't send me this amount of money within 48 hours, and I just told the person, you know what, just ignore the message because it is just a phishing campaign. We now have, and it has now gone up a notch, whereby you talk about phishing, where people call you and actually pretend to be somebody that you trust, maybe from the bank. I got a call yesterday, and someone said he's from a bank, and he found out that I just opened an account and I should actually transfer money to him so that he would deposit that money in my account. The money to my account directly. So he said that the money I want to put in my account, I should first. I was just leading him on because I was just interested in knowing what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. It was like a case study for me. So you talk about vision when people call to actually try to perpetrate crime and try to solicit sensitive information from you. And another thing that is quite rampant now is smishing. This is phishing through SMS or WhatsApp chats and all, where people will send WhatsApp chats. Click on this. This is a new money spinner. Click on this so that you can be able to get more money. Click on this for investment opportunities. Click on this for that. Don't click on the links. They are actually dangerous. Another thing we've seen a lot from organizations that in Nigeria is what we call business and email communication between organization, and you are trying to buy goods from another organization.
Hello, Fumi.
Within Nigeria or outside. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're having a bit of, hello, can you hear me? We're having a bit of issue. Your internet, I think the line is breaking, so we lost it for a while. Please.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So should I go back up a little bit?
Yes, just a bit.
Okay, so can I start from the phishing?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. So phishing is when someone sends an email to you trying to solicit information. So it might be, maybe please find a invoice as requested or something, or trying to get information from you, and he got an email from a person. I've been monitoring your system for a bit, and I actually have information that you have been dealing with pornographic content. I'm going to release it to the internet if you do not pay this amount of money.
Hello. Hello, Fumi. Okay, we would like to apologize for that. Please, we will give us some time to join us again. Okay, while we wait for Fumi, so while we wait for Fumi, we realized some of you were complaining that the time we gave for the last poll was short. So we will, for the next questions, we'll try to extend the time to 2 minutes, if that's okay. 2 to 5 minutes, if that's okay. Thank you. Hello, to answer Mr. Sa Olusegun, sorry, no, this is not a ransomware attack. It is not. We're trying to get hold of Fumi to try and bring her back in. Okay. Hello, Fumi.
Oh, really sorry. I think the internet is not cooperating with me this morning. Please, can you enable sharing so that I can share my screen?
Okay, we're working on that now.
Sincere apology. Okay, someone is saying it's a cyber attack.
Yes,
We will overcome every cyber attack. Okay. Okay. So it's actually an availability issue. So it's a cybersecurity issue. So apologies once again. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so vishing is when they make a call to try to get information from you. And smishing is when they send messages like SMS, WhatsApp chat, different things. They send messages to you, say, click on this link. This is an investment opportunity. This is a business opportunity. This is this, click on this link and all. We should also be wary of that. There's another thing, business email compromise, whereby attackers hijack email correspondence between two parties. So for example, if you're an organization in Nigeria doing business with probably an offshore organization, what the attackers do is that they listen in on the conversation so they can try to get access to your email system or the email system of the corresponding party. And when you are sending emails for transactions, they actually get access to those emails, change account details, and forward it to each of the parties. And none of the parties would actually know that anything has changed because it's actually transparent to them. So a lot of organizations in Nigeria have even fallen prey or fallen victim to this kind of attacks. Another thing is worms, virus. Virus is a malicious software that people send so that can do its bidding. Obiora talked a lot about ransomware. Ransomware is also a malicious software that people send to so that they can kidnap your system. It's like kidnapping in the digital space. They have access to your system. They encrypt the file so that you don't have access to it. And they now tell you, if you do not pay an amount of money, we are going to expose the sensitive information that you have saved, or we're not going to give you access to your data anymore. So that is what is called ransomware. And it's very, very prevalent. Many organizations, even Nigeria, are falling victim to this. Another risk that we are seeing is that because we use a lot of devices, mobile devices, iPad, tablets, phones, some of us have smartwatches, smart coffee makers, some of us even have cameras, IP cameras in our homes. Now, if we do not update all these devices or all these systems, with the updates from the manufacturer, we find out that these systems become a breeding ground for attackers or hackers. What manufacturers do is that when they've created a system, if they notice that they continuously check those systems, if they notice that probably there's a hole or a vulnerability on that system, what they do is that they fix it and send updates to all people using that system or that device. And so if we do not update our systems or devices, we find out that we are open to attackers that are able to circumvent the controls on those systems. Data breaches are really rampant. In Nigeria, we have what we call the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, NDPR. And recently I saw in the news that a particular fintech that actually gives out credit has been fined by the regulator NIDA because they are actually exposing their customers' information to other people. So most of these companies, when they are trying to get back their loan and the people are not paying, what they do is that they send messages to all the contacts in the person's phone. And what the regulator is saying that is a breach of the person's privacy. It's arguable, but that was the news that we saw. So they actually fined the company for breach of the privacy of the individual. So going on with that, another thing we see is that interfaces. So now we are talking about open banking, we're talking about doing different things, APIs and all application programming interface, APIs and other things. So a lot of organizations are being connected to other organizations through APIs, through technology, through open banking, through all these means. Now, what this means is that we are having interfaces with several other organizations. If other organizations do not have the same controls that we have in our organization, they can be a weak link to us. We have seen instances during some of our work with organizations whereby the main organization that we're supposed to look at, that we're working for, has good security mechanisms in terms of tools, in terms of processes, in terms of skilled resources. But we find out that they have an interface with another organization that has not taken the same level of, they're not taking security as serious as they are. And attackers were able to come into their network from that weak third party that they have. So those are the risks that we're exposed to. Now, when should we be cautious? If we throw this as a poll now, a lot of people will say in the night, attackers work in the night. But the thing is that in technology, we have a borderless system. The night in Nigeria is day in somewhere else. And so if you say it's only between 12 and 6 a.m., you will be alert. That means that during the day, when it is night in another place, you won't be alert. So we need to remain constantly vigilant to ensure that we protect ourselves 24/7. There is no time to, because attackers are not resting. They are trying to improve themselves. They are trying to hone and sharpen their tools. So we too cannot also rest. We have to also be on top of our game. How can we stay ahead? What are the things you need to do to stay ahead and make sure that you know about cybersecurity? The first thing, I want to address it from two aspects. From the organizational perspective, if you are within an organization, what should you do as an organization to stay ahead? And I'll also take it from the individual's perspective. So from the organization's perspective, the first thing is to define a strategy for security. A lot of people, when they think of security, they just talk about, let's buy the antivirus, let's buy the tool, let's buy this one, let's buy that one. But who will be going for a war? Imagine if Nigeria is going for a war with another country. Wouldn't you first wait and strategize how you will fight the war? Because if you are not able to do a strategy, you might go into the war without being prepared. It's the same thing in cybersecurity. It's a warfare. It's a good guys against the hackers, against the bad guys. So you first have to define a strategy. What are the things I'm exposed to? What are my crown jewels? What are the things I'm supposed to protect? You can't protect everything because imagine if you have information or a system that is worth 100,000 naira. And everything, if you value that, what that system is worth to your business is not more than 100,000 naira. But they tell you to buy an antivirus that is worth 1.5 million to protect that system that is just worth 100,000 naira, it does not make business sense. So you have to be able to say, okay, what are the things I have? What are the crown jewels that I have? And what should I use to protect them, to ensure that whatever I have is not exposed? The next thing is awareness. And I think that is why CSCS is doing this. We need to be aware, and the employees within our organization need to be constantly reminded about what they need, what their role is in securing their organization. From the boardroom to the basement, even the cleaners, the janitors, and other people need to be aware that, okay, this is what my role is, this is what I need to do. So for example, a sensitive document is placed on a table, and a cleaner picks it up while cleaning the table and just throws it into the dustbin without shredding it. That's a cybersecurity issue, because if that information goes out, and maybe, so for example, some of those people that sell akara or sell puff puff, you would see that they are using people's CVs and people's sensitive information to wrap those things. That is a cybersecurity issue. Imagine if it's someone's account statement, is an investment account statement that is being used to wrap puff puff. That would be a major issue. So everybody needs to be aware of their role in order to secure the organization. The next thing is to ensure that we do continuous assessment on our environment, on our network, reach out to skilled professionals that can perform what we call penetration tests. So what they do is that they simulate what an attacker will do and let you know the holes that you have within your organization, so that you can cover them or fix them. This will ensure that when real attackers come, those holes are not available for them to exploit. So you need to get an organization that can do that. And the next thing is that you need to have constant visibility about what is happening. You know that even within our organization, in physical security, we don't only have doors and locks. We also have CCTV cameras to monitor. In your network too, you need to have a 24/7 monitoring capability on your network, so that you are able to find out if something goes wrong, you are able to respond adequately and contain whatever the issue is. The last thing is the ability to respond and recover, so that when something goes wrong, in security now, we say it's not just about if you will be hacked, it's about when you will be hacked. Would you know when you have been hacked? And would you be able to respond and recover, so that there's minimal impact on your business operations and you are able to bounce back quickly? So for individuals, I just have like 10 tips. There's many more, but I'm going to share these top 10 tips that you should do to protect yourself. First thing, do not click on links in emails, WhatsApp messages, SMS. A random person sends you an SMS, click on this link. You are the 1,000th person to do this today. Click on this link for your prize. Don't click on the link. If it's from a trusted source like a bank, go to their site and look for the link. Go to their site manually and look for the link. We should not trust foreign devices, or if you, in this era of remote working, people just look for any free Wi-Fi and just use it because they're trying to save costs. But that is dangerous, because if you connect to a Wi-Fi that you do not know about, you don't know the other people on that Wi-Fi and wireless network, and you would be invariably exposing your information to them, because they can see it, even though it has a password, but all of you are connected to the same wireless network. You are within the same network, like how you will be within the same network in your office. So if you do not know the other people on the network, you can expose yourself. Also, do not ignore browser warnings. If your browser is saying this site is untrusted, it's better you do not go to their site. We should make sure we encrypt or encode sensitive information before sending. If you need to send sensitive information, and if you absolutely have to use a free wireless network, maybe in a hotel or in an airport, then make sure you encrypt it, make sure you password the information and send the password through another medium to your recipients. We should ensure that we have our applications and software and antivirus, everything up to date. We should, as much as possible, avoid using free antivirus because some of them come embedded with some other applications or some other functionality that you may not know. We should also prevent using unauthorized device, like using flash drives that you are not sure of. From just pick one flash, or someone brings a flash drive, just put it in your system. You should, as much as possible, prevent that. Do not install things when the pop-up comes up. Your system is slow. You just did a memory scan. Your system is slow. Click on this to install an application, or your mobile device is slow. Click on this to optimize your battery. As much as possible, do not install all those systems, all those applications, because they come embedded with a lot of things. We call them Trojans. We should not visit or download from untrusted sites. And our passwords, there was a banner I saw sometime that your password should be like your toothbrush. You do not share and you change it regularly. So that should be your mantra for your password, and ensure that you keep, you change from just password to a passphrase, which can be a sentence that is long, but you try to look at, do capital, small letters, numbers, and all that to change things. And if you communicate, if you have anything that's happening, make sure you communicate and keep abreast of all that is happening in security. So in conclusion, who is responsible? You are the target. You are responsible. Remember, attackers will not come and say, I'm an attacker, I want to hack you now. They will come very, very unassuming, but you have to stay alert, you have to stay vigilant, and you have to be on top of your game. Thank you very much for your time, and I think we can take questions now.
Thank you very much, Fumi. Thank you for such an interesting presentation. So Fumi is saying, please do not be the weakest link. So we're about to launch questions for today for this particular presentation. However, I'd like to announce the winner for the last questions. The very first winner is Michael Odumosu. Hello, our first winner, Michael Odumosu. While the second winner is Ada Obodo. I'm sorry about that. So we will definitely be contacting you after the end of this workshop. Once again, congratulations. So the next question for this presentation is about to come up now. So we'll give everyone 2 to 5 minutes to attempt the questions. So, yes, 2 to 5 minutes. Let's wait for the questions. And while we wait for the questions, I would like to let the panelists, all our panelists, to be ready. So the moderator for this panel discussion will be our own in-house Isioma Lawal. So, okay, so the poll is up now. So we'll give you 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes to attempt the questions. Thank you. Okay, so while the poll is going on, I would like to call on our panelists. The first is Mr. Harrison Unaji. Mr. Harrison Unaji, he's the panelist for today's discussion. Fumi, please, we would like to call you back on again. Then we have Tobe Nadoze. He's the Divisional Head of Business Technology and Digital Innovation, CSCS PLC. Then I would like to call on Phil Mani. Phil Mani is the Regional Director, West and East Africa Alliance Media Group. Isioma Lawal will be our moderator. Isioma Lawal is the head of ERM and Resilience Services. And of course, she's the acting chief risk officer of CSCS. I would like to hand over to Isioma now, while she does proper introduction.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We've had wonderful presentations this morning. Thank you to the presenters. For our panelists, before we start, I'd like to, Harrison Naji wasn't here in the morning, in the first session to give his presentation. We don't know if there's anything he would like to add to the presentation before we go ahead. It's a privilege to have him on here. Mr. Harrison?
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I will say, let me stand on the existing protocols. Sincere apologies. This morning I had a conflict that made it almost difficult for me to attend presentation, but I'm sure that it was well done. I think I was able to join the penultimate page slide. So the panel session will give us opportunity to further dimension and speak to a number of the questions. But at the end, we all need to realize that everything is changing and we cannot no longer be able to use consistency as a strength, where you say, this is what I do and this is how I do it. It's no longer a strength. Strength is now on dynamism, your capacity to interpret your environment, interpret your pursuits, interpret your goals, and continuously align and change, including the improvement of yourself. So that's one of the key message. So as a cybersecurity professional, as an organization, you realize that your strategy of today may no longer be able to suffice for your goals. So there needs to be that continuous awakening. So, and you also need to, there's one of the things I keep saying, if you listen to one of the things that the MD of Nokia said, the popular thing is that we did nothing wrong. Understand, that's one of the major message. But we have interpreted it and said that we did almost everything wrong. You know why? Because while he was in the kitchen preparing a meal, he was not keeping an eye on the audience that expected to eat that meal, right? So while carbohydrates, people went on to become veg. So by the time the meal was ready, nobody wanted to touch it. And that's a complete misalignment. So as a CEO, as a practitioner, you need to focus on what is changing in your target audience. So that is very fundamental. If not, by the time you're ready, by the time you're graduating, by the time you think you're ready for the market, the goalposts already moved. He was focusing on strength and resilience. Market moved to services. and it's difficult for them to cope. So that's very fundamental. And this is the same approach whether you're security, discussing the economy, discussing market risk, discussing entrepreneurship, whatever you're doing, you need to keep an eye on what you're doing and how the market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so a quick rundown. Let me just introduce our speakers before we start. And for those that have questions, please quickly put them in the Q&A and we get them to answer one by one. Please use the Q&A option. So we'd like to introduce in no particular order Tobe Nadose. He's a seasoned innovative specialist. He's a digital technology expert. He has 20 years experience that spans across the multiple sectors from the banking to the oil and gas, to the insurance, to the capital market. Okay, so he was the pioneer head of e-business and head of innovation and products in Heritage Bank. And then he was for that role, he was the chief information officer and group head technology and e-business for Guarantee Trust Bank, the Guarantee Trust Mansard, sorry. So that was before his current employer. Right now, he's divisional head technology and innovation at CSCS, and he was the group chief information officer at WAPIC. Thank you, Tobe, for joining us. We also have Philip Mani. We also have Philip Mani. He is the regional director, West and East Africa Alliance Media Group. And within his portfolio, he runs the CISO Alliances. That's Abuja and Lagos and Kenya chapters. Okay, and he's an economics graduate from Cardiff University with 15 years experience in international business. And his experience covers all sectors, including IT, oil and energy, mining, and security. Basim. Okay, so in our flyer we had Walid, but Walid couldn't be with us today, and Bassam is representing him. Thank you for joining us, Bassam. Thank you for the short notice. So Bassam is an experienced executive in the domain of cybersecurity, and his strong focus is on emerging markets, of which you know Nigeria is one of them. He's currently the business development manager of Shell, and is responsible for developing business across telecom and financial sectors across Africa. He has led many business development teams of the telecom group in Africa, bringing the latest technology trends to enterprise and customers and telecom partners. So he is well versed to represent Walid in this discussion. Thank you for joining us. He has a master's degree in computer and communication engineering from University of St. Joseph. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Isioma.
I think the other speakers were introduced. Thank you very much. Sorry, let me just talk about Harrison Naji, because he wasn't introduced when his presentation was made on his behalf. So he's an accomplished data and information security strategist and a practitioner with 13 solid years of experience in conception, engineering, design, delivery, operation, and optimization of cyber and data information.
Hello, Isioma. Hello, Isioma.
Yes,
we are having difficulty. We can't hear you, please. Your audio. Please check your audio.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Is it better now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I was just introducing Mr. Harrison Naji, who is the Chief Information Security Officer of First Bank. So to save time, let's just delve into the question and answer sessions so that we also keep this within 2 hours. Thank you very much, all our participants, for joining. So the first question, how do we do this? Let me go to Tobe. Tobe.
Hello, Isioma. Hello, Isioma. Please, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, so I think I have to go to my backup line.
No, Isioma, hold on. I think many people may hear you. It may be a local problem to the person complaining, because I can hear you. And I see other people nodding their head that they can hear you. So you may want to check where you're connecting from. It may be the person speaking that is having local challenge. Okay.
Thank you.
I was about to activate my own BCP. So if you can hear me, I'd like to ask, you have been in this ransomware and phishing, they're among the risks that have threatened industries recently, especially with this COVID pandemic. It's now like a big thing. In your perspective, from your perspective, how would companies mitigate this risk? What has worked for you in mitigating this risk?
Okay, thanks a lot, Isioma. And once again, welcome to everyone who is a part of this session. So as we look at the ransomware, I think before I talk about what we have done, it's good to put things in context and see how things have evolved. The first thing is, especially since last year, the change of our work mode have seriously affected or enhanced ransomware. I mean, I've been looking at different reports. You know, you have reports coming from those who support cyber security platforms and from, you know, the independent consultants. And averagely, from what I have seen, we've had like a 600% spike in ransomware in particular between 2019 and the first quarter of 2021. And the question to ask is, why is it that we've had this type of increase, especially in ransomware? And I guess the reason is because it's the most deliberate threat, because it's the easiest for people to get funding in the dark environment. So I'm looking at increase in how much have been paid. In 2018, 8 billion from those who reported was paid for ransomware alone. In 2020, 21 billion was paid. Unfortunately, in 2020, we have had deaths connected with ransomware, which we didn't have before now. So it means these guys are getting more daring. Most of the deaths have come from health-related things, because when people refuse to pay, they getting into the system, they change the route. So if someone is meant to go to this specialist hospital, they change everything, the person goes in there. We've had a couple of deaths related to this. But looking through those who have reported what they have done, we find out that most of these ransomware attacks are basically due to human errors. There's a report that comes from one of the endpoint providers. Of course, it will be biased a little bit, but let's moderate the bias nature. So from they are mitigating some of the ransomware attack, they found out that 60% of the ransomware attack are based on the inability of the internal teams to patch their system properly. So they are tied to, you know, unpatched issues. And 75% of attacked firms have reported also that most of the challenges are due to human errors. That's non-security staff. So people clicking on links, and 75% of these ransomware attacks are due to human errors. Having put that in context, clearly, cyber vigilance remains the best way to mitigate issues. Cyber vigilance in terms of letting people know what they need to do, letting people ensure that, you know, when they see something, they report it. I think a lot of people are afraid to report because they'll be penalized. So I think the IT security teams involved in this session need to take that home and ensure that cyber vigilance is fun. It should not be a policing, so that when people see things, they report before it gets out of hand. The next thing is expert-controlled SOC needs to come in. So that era of, you know, every company wanting to maintain your SOC, I think that era is going. It was Harrison that mentioned it, that it's how dynamic you are today that matters. And that dynamism thrives on information. If you don't know what is happening, you can't be dynamic. So there's need to get into expert-controlled SOC. If you know you don't have the resources that can give you an internal SOC. SOC is a security operating control center. So if you know you don't have the required resources, please outsource it to those who have the the required resources so that that can be put in place. Then we are coming back to multi-factor authentication, but I need to put things also in place. Multi-factor authentication should come in two ways. Number one, put multi-factor authentication for controlled system, because you need to balance security and service. The new era now is having controlled or customized multi-factor authentication for users. Multi-factor authentication for users would mean, based on how you profile a user, you need to start putting multi-factor authentication. So there are some people who may need just one level of authentication to log in into their emails. Some people may require 3 levels. So if you find out that someone is always putting the organization at risk, you need to start adding, multiple authentication for that individual. That helps. Why that helps is, if you put multi-factor authentication for everybody, sometimes for the hackers, they can easily, guess your environment and know what to do. Let me wrap up by saying continuous education, data security, and putting in place staff loyalty. There are 2 types of staff loyalty that needs to be put in place. The first one is the enforced staff loyalty. People need to sign a contract at the beginning of the year to say this is what they are going to do. People need to be reminded, maybe quarterly, a 1-pager that pops up on the system. Are you agreeing to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which you need to put in place? That's enforced security. Enforced security works, but the new part of security is enlisted, staff loyalty, where people are excited in ensuring the organizations are secured because they feel a part of the organization and they know the benefits they get when the organization avoids cyber crimes. Thank you, Selma.
Thank you very much. So the next question goes to Mr. Bassam. From you've been in this industry for several years, and I'm sure that there are changes that you have seen across the years, how cybersecurity has evolved through the years, not even only in terms of threats, basically how cybersecurity is viewed in the organization. Can you tell us from your experience what you have seen?
Thank you, Izioma. Yeah, definitely, as with everything, and Mr. Harrison Naji mentioned it, things change, and the evolvement, for the last, for the last decade or maybe more, has changed drastically because companies, whether financial institutions, telcos, and other forefronting technology companies or other type, even retailers, changed their business models and offering and digitized their services and offer them to the public. So this transformation, of course, and it's a continuous transformation, it's still continuing, imposed a lot of risks, especially cybersecurity risks. So definitely, when cybersecurity started with the computing age, it started to protect against viruses, against different known software malwares with the antiviruses and endpoint protection, and then it evolved drastically by applying what we call the defense in depth or security in layers. Currently, and this was mentioned, a lot during this session, that it's in this information age, it's all about getting the right information and acting on it. So basically, we see that what we call threat intelligence and proactiveness is key to a cybersecurity transformation within an organization. So it's one of the components. It's not everything, because cybersecurity is a very big word nowadays. Considering the new norm of conducting business, the extended networks, the cloud integration, the hybrid environments, work from home people. So there is a lot of complexity coming into play, and cyber risks is increasing, and that's why there is an increase in the attacks prevalence and in the impacts, financial impacts. This is unfortunately is going to increase even more in the years to come, because people are, or organizations and businesses are offering more and more digital services. So coming into, as a small conclusion, nowadays we see what we call zero trust kind of setups for an effective cybersecurity, countermeasures. But we also see a lot of, regulations being imposed on businesses, such as data protection, new data protection laws, to be able to support the businesses and enforce, specific sectors, if not across all countries, like in Nigeria, you have the data protection laws, to make sure that businesses are taking cybersecurity very seriously, and information and privacy, which is currently, everyone knows it's the new oil. Data is the new oil, to be taken really seriously, and the applied controls also to protect private information, to protect confidential information, to impose, cybersecurity controls are in place. So definitely, if I'm gonna say, zero trust is key, intelligence is key, and preventive and preemptive cybersecurity is, is here to stay for the future.
Thank you so much. We have so many questions. Let's keep our answers shorter so that we can cover a lot, or else everybody will just have to ask questions afterwards. So if we didn't get to your questions, our wonderful audience, don't worry, just send an email and we will still respond to you. But let's take as many as we can now. The next one goes to Fumi. What's your view on using cyber criminals to prevent cybercrime? That's a controversial question. Using cyber criminals to prevent cybercrime. Well, I think there's a saying, and which I believe is that to catch a thief, you have to think like a thief. So it's a mechanism that is used in some crimes whereby they capture terrorists or capture people that have done wrong, and actually query them and use them to provide insights on how to get other people. So if we have, in quotes, reformed cyber criminals, we can actually use them to understand the workings, the underground workings of how they perpetrate the crime, and use that to even improve the defense mechanism. So it's a mechanism, and I think it's something that can be explored. Making sure that they don't go back and they are not actually, they don't become insider threats. That's the so. But if we ensure that they actually have turned a new leaf and they are ready to work to ensure we build a good security environment, then yes, we can learn a lot from what they know. Thank you very much for that. So this question is for Mr. Phil. How do you convey to the board with regards to cybersecurity that you can only minimize risk, can never be 100% sure? As the saying goes, it's not have they attacked you, it is when are they going to attack you. So how do we convey this message to the board?
It's probably something which CISOs have always a challenge with, because I think no matter whether you're looking at cyber-related security or physical security, I've got, I suppose, the benefit of the fact that I also run an initiative on the physical security side of oil and energy. So all the stuff to do with kidnap for ransom, piracy, and so on. And I think it's quite transparent across both IT as well as security, that security is always looked at as a cost versus an investment. A nice kind of analogy is very similar to your car insurance. Nobody wants to pay for it. You've got it there for when things go wrong, in effect. So I think when you're trying to convey it across is to speak in business language as opposed to cyber related, because ultimately when it comes down to any investment, people want to know why you want to spend that, what it's going to do, and how it's going to prevent. With security and cyber, It's very non-discriminatory. You've obviously got the situations with the Colonial Pipeline attack in the US, the Accenture attack recently, as well as obviously the well-publicized SolarWinds incident. And, you know, one way of sort of conveying is what is the real cost of a breach to your organization? So you need to break it down in terms of factors of reputational risk, downtime in operation, and really sort of talk in business terms, I think is the easiest way of building it up. A favorite quote of mine is a Benjamin Franklin quote, which is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I think it's one of those really good analogies which kind of comes into play. Also then, you know, preparation when it comes down to resilience, it's not a question of if you will be attacked, it's going to be a question of how. Because criminals since the beginning of time have been there, they'll keep coming back, they keep looking for vulnerabilities, and naturally your preparation is very, very key. And interestingly, it's one of the discussions I've been having offline with Mr. Naji over at First Bank is stakeholder management, because effectively when you're going to your board talking about cyber, they want to know real bottom line in terms of how this will work, how it will prevent, and more importantly, why that investment is worth spending. So hopefully that kind of covers your question.
Thank you. Okay, so this question is for Mr. Naji. So this digitalization is a double-edged sword. It has incredible benefits, but it also has plenty risks, serious risks. What are your thoughts on this innovative development? Because we have to do it. What's your thoughts on this?
Okay, so the question is on digitalization, right? Right? Digitalization and digitalization. Okay, so the first point is, you know, we talked about being dynamic, right? Let me cite something that happened in sometime very long time ago. So you have a very successful man that was into trailer business, so haulage, right? And then almost all he was fighting to make sure that his locality does not get an airport, because he found out that that will be a major threat to his business. Eventually, they got an airport. Eventually, he lost the business. So when you evaluate it in the different business school of thoughts, they say one thing the man did not recognize is that he was not in a trailer business, transportation business. If he had realized he was in a transportation business, he would have been the first to float an airline because he had the resources. So the question on digitalization is, what business are you doing? What happens here is people focus more on how the service is delivered rather than on why the service needs to be delivered. Once you miss this gap, then you come into this kind of argument, whether do we digitalize. It's not an argument. I mean, it shouldn't even come up for discussion, because your business is to focus on why you are in business, not necessarily you are in business. So you hear, oh, the downfall drivers so that the BRT buses will not come. When you hear that kind of thing, you say, these guys actually have concluded that their business delivery model must be downfall, right? So they're not seeing themselves as transport engines. Do you understand? Which is primarily to move one person from one location to another location. So you also do this with the yellow taxis. So you still walk around, and when you see yellow taxi, you get shocked. So these people are still in business. So because this person is saying, I will not change, I will continue this business because this is what I will live and die with. So the question on digitalization is the fact that the whole community of my targeted consumers, their consumption approach has changed or is changing. So it becomes natural that if I want to stay in this business, if I want to continue to fulfill the why, then it's natural that I begin to now tune my response to digitalize. So take banking, for example. You have a branch, where your details, right? So anytime you need anything, you go to that branch. So they bring out your number 24. In fact, it got to a point where people actually know their number on a file. So they tell you your number, and you can conclude all your business there. Then eventually people begin to realize that motion had also become part of the lifestyle. So you can't have an account in Enugu while you are in Lagos. So now the bank connected to say, network it in such a way that wherever you are, you should be able to access and operate your account. Then get to a point where you realize, oh, I don't even want to come to the bank. I want to be able to open my account, run my nothing. I don't want to relate with anyone. So digitalization becomes, so as the test of people are changing. As the test of people influenced by the realities in the economy. For example, COVID, right? I have known someone that said he will never own a debit card or a credit card because it is not. So he goes into the branch on a Friday or a Thursday to make his withdrawals. But right now, he's not been to a bank for more than 2 years because he embraced digitalization and realized that it's actually more convenient, that he does not need to buy things again in the market. He needs to, at his own convenience, at his own time, he can open a web page, select everything he needs, go back and cancel. Do you understand? So, but again, digitalization is also something you should not do by hype. I always say, do it with knowledge. It's not something you do by hype to say, oh, every other person have gone online, I have to go online. That's not how it goes. You need to understand your own context, your business delivery model, what needs to change, and understand your roadmap. Understand the risk you will be exposed to. And also understand, and in fact, I say, listen, the problem you understand is almost equivalent to the solution, no, or you don't understand. Because once you understand a problem, naturally they say it's almost half done solving it. That can be left for further debate, right? But understanding a problem gives you a position to begin to stimulate possible remedial actions. So in approaching the, just like double-edged sword, I mean, it takes an average ATM machine has a limit, even if you run it by 1,000. And it takes a forklift and maybe an army of men to run, right? But someone with 2 MB with remote location can wipe off a bank. Understand the problem here. So you have a situation, yes, in the non-digital world, things are difficult to move. But yes, there are also business opportunities that you cannot attract. But then in the digital world, things are easier to move, more convenient. Also exposes the organization to a lot of threats. So if you look at the last part of the presentation that we made, you said you have to create a balance. If everything perfect, zero risk, then you shouldn't be in the digital world. You should just close down and go, right? But if you also want to be in business, you have to make sure that I am able to give my because digitalization is about confidence and comfort. The person must have confidence that you can provide this service in a very safe way. The confidence that he can interact with your business at any point in time. So trust, confidence, and comfort. But on the other side, you also have to such a way that it is not the business. I mean, security is not the business of a bank. The business of a bank is to provide people opportunities to work with funds. So yes, work with knowledge, strategy, whether documented or undocumented, work with the right set of people, understand why you are in business, understand where your customers are located, understand the risk, both in an organizational risk that you're exposed to, then work out a plan on how to mitigate them. Also know that business is, I call it risk management. That's because the higher the risk most times, the higher the benefit. But you need to be able to modulate it in such a way that you are still able to get out or extract all the points from digitalization without getting far exposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This question goes to Tobe. How important is information sharing within this sector about cybersecurity to keep abreast of new threats and cybersecurity best practices? Because when somebody is hacked, everybody keeps hush hush. Nobody is saying. I know that during the presentation, one of the audience was asking, give statistics of Nigeria. But how do we even know when nobody is talking and everybody is just keeping it confidential? So how important is this information sharing?
Okay, thanks a lot, Isioma. So information sharing is very critical. And why it's critical is because, like they say in the IT security world, it's a matter of when and not if. And unfortunately, in some of our clients, people seem to think not talking about it would help to protect the organization. But not talking about it does two things. First of all, it reduces the ability of those who have not suffered the attack you have suffered to be able to provide some resilience and position themselves to avert the attack. Number two, it further exposes you because help you could have obtained from those who have been able to mitigate such attack, you may not be able to get that type of help. So I think what we have now operating in some countries is regulations have been put in place to ensure that if you have a cyber attack and you don't report it to the appropriate bodies, you are penalized heavily. Sometimes the penalty is even heavier than the cost of the attack. And that's why you find in these countries, you find they have more resilience, they have more protection. So information sharing is critical. Critical, number one, to enable you get better reports and better systems and processes of others who have done these mitigations successfully. Number two, to enable the community. So if you are within the financial community, when you are all protected, it's easier than when you alone think you have gone ahead. So it enables your own operating community to be protected. Number three, it also enables you to position yourself as a thought leader. When people see you as someone who is able to talk about what has happened, talk about what you have done, and bring people together to discuss how to further, protect each other, you find out to become a thought leader. Number four, if I would also mention, you find out that people who speak about things and especially are protected, these dark community, they avoid them. So it's a name and shame thing sometimes for some types of exposure. So when you talk and you shame, especially when you've been exposed, it's easier for people to avoid you. Just like kidnapping, ransomware is kidnapping. Sometimes when you keep quiet, they come for the second person, come for the third person. They know you keep keeping quiet and you keep paying. But when they know you are this type of person, I don't want to mention names, like, a few of the governors which we have in the country, you find out that people will avoid them because they know they will talk. So sometimes talking and putting measures in place even protects you better than keeping quiet and protects the community ultimately. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phil, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, so I raised my hand because I think, Toby, you hit the nail on the head there, is the fact that when you're running IT departments or when you're having to report into the board for issues happening, you get it in the neck when things are going well, and you get it doubly in the neck when things go wrong, which we all know happens. So I think in terms of the reason why I wanted to put my hand up on that is, as I was introduced by Isioma, I run a program called the CISO Alliances in Niger, and the basis behind that is a community of IT leaders who come together to share best practice. But one of the big sort of draws from my side of things is it's done in a protected environment, because as you correctly stated, Toby, experiences need to be shared because we're all in a unified combat against cyber criminality. That's the reality. Is security through community is a key aspect behind that. So the importance of sharing experiences. Why would you want your friend who's doing the exact same role in another organization to face the same challenges? And the reality is we all know that human error is probably the biggest challenge when it comes down to cyber. So everything you say there in terms of sharing best practice and knowledge, I appreciate sometimes it can get a bit touchy, especially if you're in financial services, for argument's sake, and you're all fighting over trying to get customers and so on. But when you actually isolate the cyber or the IT aspect of it, you're not competing with each other. So from that point of view, I think sharing experiences, knowledge, but in that protected environment is very, very key. So just as a slight difference compared to what we've got right now, when I run a session with our IT leaders, they're unrecorded. They're under Chatham House rules, and there's a key code of conduct that anything that's said in the discussion is not to be quoted. And I think as long as you have that level of trust around each other, and as Toby correctly mentioned, you're aware of those who may have loose lips, then you don't put yourself in the firing line for any issues there. So I hope that sort of complements what Toby mentioned.
Yes, thank you very much. And this one is for Bassam, and his camera is not on. Is he still with us?
Yeah.
So this is for you. So we know that our business is only as strong as our weakest link, right? And we have to connect to third-party vendors. How do you manage this third-party risks? How do we keep our data safe?
Excellent question, Isioma, because especially now, I'm focusing on the now and maybe more on the future, because third parties, vendors across the whole supply chain or the value chain of any organization, digitization is key. It's at the heart of it. So whether any type of business needs to be somehow connected throughout his supply chain digitally with different systems. And when you onboard somebody as a vendor, or when you build a partnership, first and foremost, trust should be there. The level of trust differs, but there should be a level of trust. Okay. However, in order to reach, this trust level, definitely any organization needs to do its due diligence first and foremost on whenever onboarding a new vendor, by asking the right questions from a cybersecurity perspective and from a risk perspective. So it's all based on from a risk, based approach, whether to provide evidence of, protective measures, audits, previous audits, etc., compliance to, certain specific regulatory requirements, or to meeting specific industry standards in cybersecurity. And then you move after this onboarding to continuously monitoring this relationship. We call it now, it's a very hype in the cybersecurity world. It's zero trust, that you need to trust someone, but you need to always verify the identity of who is connecting to your environment, giving him least privilege access. So there is quite of measures to be taken even after establishing this trust, maintaining this trust, and protecting yourself. So basically, you should trust, but you should always verify whom you are trusting, and making sure that this person or this supplier connecting to you or communicating with you is actually who he pretends to be. And we talked about phishing previously. Phishing is or kind of a man-in-the-middle type of attacks that is applied a lot using trusted or mimicking or impersonating trusted sources that an organization trusts. For example, let's say procurement trusts a certain supplier. So the attacker or the hackers will try to impersonate this trusted source and try to phish, for example, the procurement person, etc. So vigilance needs to be there. Of course, cybersecurity awareness across all the organization is key. Definitely, Nigeria, we see it a lot. Nigeria is really on the forefront of, advocating cybersecurity best practices, applying the notion of vigilance, creating awareness campaigns within organization, whether they are big or even smaller size organization. And this is fundamental and this is key, because the weakest link is always the human, persona, or the employee, the unawareness of the best practices out there. So, enforcing awareness and making sure there are awareness programs that are interactive and informational is also something to be really taken seriously, as we see it a lot, within the Nigeria cybersecurity community.
Thank you so much. I wish we had more time to go on and on, but it's almost time to go to the next table. Let me just ask one last question, and this will be to Fumi. Is Fumi still with us? Okay, Fumi. So this question is about the security of data during transmission. Most of us have smartphones. We see free Wi-Fi. I won't be wrong, Bele. We will plug into this free Wi-Fi. We see, So in your presentation, you mentioned something like we want to send a message and we should encrypt it and send the password via another means. So what happens, for instance, I'm sitting at the airport and they say free Wi-Fi. I need to quickly send a message to somebody in the office, very important or whatever. How do you encrypt this? How do we encrypt our sensitive data? How do we protect this exposure? Because we know that the risk is the data in transmission. How do we protect ourselves?
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so the first thing, there are some tools that you can use. For example, if it's simple to like WinZip, you can zip the content and actually put a password while zipping it, so such that you can have send the password probably through a message, or call the person to give the person PDF. You can put a password on Excel, whatever you can put. That would be another thing is that a site. So if you have to hello.
Okay, so you're breaking for a bit, but I think it's okay now.
Okay, so another thing is that you can use what we call a VPN, a virtual private network. So if you have a VPN on your system on the device, you can use the VPN to access the internet at that time. So what that does is that it creates a tunnel such that even other people within the network will not be able to sniff and see what you are doing. So those are the mechanisms you can employ.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you all. In the interest of time, we'll just go to the next program on the agenda. Thank you for the wonderful panels. It was so interesting. Meanwhile, we'll launch a feedback session. So you can give us your feedback while this presentation is going on. Thank you, Ugo. Over to you.
Okay, Sioma, thank you. We lost you for a bit, but no problem. Thank you very much. Once again, we would like to thank all the panelists for your time. I'm sure we all enjoyed your discussion, and looking at the chat, we saw lots of engagement. So thank you once again, and thank you for your time. So we have winners for this poll. However, we are going to announce the winner after a special announcement from CSCS. So why we would like to call on Mr. Folabade Adeyemi. Is he available? Hello.
Morning, Ogo. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So before that, we'll give you for your announcement. We'd like to assign 5 minutes for your announcement. But before he comes up, we are going to launch another poll right now. You know, this is a workshop we would like to continue. So we really want to hear from the attendees, your views and your feedback, and how we can make this workshop better for everyone. So we'll be launching the poll right now, very soon, right now. So we appreciate if everyone can partake on that. So I would like to call on Bade, if you can get ready.
I am ready. Okay. Just wanted to confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right, fantastic. So I will do the job of being the plug, and like Ogo has mentioned, it's an announcement session, but not so much an announcement, just to keep people abreast of things. Up till now, we've had a very technical session. Can you hear me?
Bade, please, can you put on your camera?
It's on actually.
Oh, it is?
Yes. Okay. So can I go ahead? So let me just go ahead. So in the interest of time, now, as I had mentioned, I have the special task of trying to come after a lot of specialists have spoken, and I will do my best to do the subject justice. And basically all I'll be talking to is to flip the conversation around from the operator side of the fence to the investor side of the fence, who are ultimately the users of all the applications and infrastructure that we have been discussing about. Again, I'll be very, very brief as I'm going through. And as you can see on the screen, what you have is the mascot of Anonymous, the movement Anonymous, which is the Guy Fawkes individual. Now, basically, what I'm just trying to do now is to put a center stage or a spotlight on the current situation of things. There's a lot of conversation about cybersecurity from the enterprise side, but this time, let's look at how it's impacting the market and specifically how it's affecting CSCS and investor protection, and what exactly we can do to protect ourselves. Again, looking at the tools that CSS is also providing. Clearly, we're in the not so new normal. Things have changed. A lot of COVID has been the biggest driver for digital transformation in the world has seen up until now. A lot of the surveys have been done in terms of what exactly COVID is doing in terms of business going forward. McKinsey has said that 64% of their respondents believe that the conversation around digital transformation and how things is going to be done is going to become an existential requirement going forward. Again, maybe borrowing from Fumi's surveys done by Deloitte, 49% of the respondents also mentioned that COVID has actually driven a lot of the digital transformation. So the bottom line of what I'm trying to highlight in the conversation here is that COVID is clearly strengthening or pushing or amping up the conversation around business resilience, protecting the perimeter of the enterprise applications and data repositories. But then again, what is happening to the investor, the person that's not within this perimeter? A lot of things are happening around the digital space, considering now we have to move away from offline business engagements to online business engagements. We're seeing a lot of people targeting individuals specifically because the business is now being swayed towards that direction. Like I mentioned, IOSCO has also mentioned that there's been a significant uptick in terms of cyber attacks from an exchange perspective. But in terms of how the cyber attack and how it's coming it's coming in various ways. We've seen a lot of social engineering and people selling, just like previous speakers have mentioned, selling of personal information out there. And I think as an FMI, it becomes a major consideration that we need to take at the back of our mind, especially not just any kind of FMI, an FMI in an emerging market situation / frontier market situation. Again, because we're in an emerging market / frontier market, we have the challenges that come with us, things like identification and just data being generally digital, moving from analog to digital. And the fact that this is where where we're seeing as capital markets operators, we're seeing a lot of people taking advantage of this in the form of identity theft and people just converting assets to their own positions that shouldn't necessarily be in their own situation. So what we're seeing is, like I mentioned, a growth in identity theft. Fraudsters are exploiting the systemic gaps and making their personal windfalls come out of this. So how can this be avoided from a user perspective? And this is where I do the CSCS plug. You just basically have to take ownership of your assets and identify your assets wherever they are. Identity theft thrives when there is inaction on the part of the investor. So first thing is you need to fill that void, update your information, go out there to try and identify what you have and ensure that you take ownership of those assets by putting your own information out there so that when anything is going to be changed on your records, you are immediately informed. Increase your visibility, join the digital revolution, download the CSCS app. We have a mobile app out there, and even trading apps just to understand what you have and if there are changes in those assets, in your asset base. Then strengthen your access control. Like people have mentioned a lot of things around credential management and passwords. You need to ensure that you now then turn on the notifications. Again, this conversation is really more from the user side of the fence. Increase the password complexity and strength. One thing I took away from Fumi was that maybe we now need to start considering things like passphrases instead of passwords. And I think that's one thing I have taken away from this conversation. It's very key. And then ultimately do a periodic account review. It's beyond just having online access. You need to then take ownership and just understand what you have and understand when changes occur, even if it all happens to be their unauthorized changes. And I think that basically is what I'm trying to promote by having this conversation, to let people from a user perspective understand that this is what CSS is all about, being able to promote that visibility into assets, being able to understand when these changes happen, and ultimately provide that visibility through platforms that CSS is all about. So basically, we're pushing for a lot of investor updates through advocacy campaigns. And if you check the majority of our social media channels, this is what we're doing. Again, this is a plug, and I will more or less just stop here and hand it back to Ogo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bade. Thank you very much for that announcement. So before we go, I would like to launch the poll for the feedback now. So, okay, we have winner for the second part of our quiz. The winner for this second part is Troy. We just have your name as Troy. Why the second is Omorumi Ihir. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your surname very well, but I would like to, the first winner. So our four winners are Michael Odumosu, Ada Obodo, Troy, and Omorumi. We will definitely reach out to you via email. We have your email addresses. Thank you very much. Before the closing remark, we would like to call on Isioma Lawal to do the closing remark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your participation today. It was so interesting. I wish we didn't have to go, but good things have to come to an end. So let me just recap this session. We had the topic of cybersecurity challenges that we faced today that was given by, on behalf of Harrison Naji. And what I learned there was that insider threat has increased. So we need to pay particular attention to our staff these days in terms of cybersecurity. And they gave a rundown of different things that could have, that can make a staff become a threat. So we just need to shine our eye, that quote, for that. And the second speaker went on to talk about why do we need to stay on top of cybersecurity. and we learned that human error is a primary cause of this cybersecurity. All those phishing mails, all those links you're clicking on. If you like, put all the technology gadgets you have in this world, that's human error.
Last year.
The human part of it is very important. So we need to be careful of that as well. We also learn, so you have to also learn to be careful of the things you are downloading. Even onto your personal devices. Somebody told me Google is watching us. That you just think, oh, I want to go for vacation. Next day they start sending you all the vacation spots, best place, airline tickets. You know all the things you have downloaded on your phone. When you are downloading all those permissions, I will say allow access to camera, allow access. What am I downloading? What concern camera? What concern voice? So sometimes you need to also be very careful on things that you're downloading on your end, because you can even be the big link and you don't know. And so we also learned different strategies to keep ourselves safe. Things like don't go and take free Wi-Fi. So different things that, of course, you get this presentation so you can learn more. And then Falagbade came and rounded it up nicely, bringing it back to capital market and bringing it home to us. About our data, yes, right now we are updating KYC. That's the big thing that's happening right now. So how should we protect ourselves? So Falagbade's presentation or his special announcement kind of brings it back home, how we should be very careful and take ownership of this data. So thank you all so much. We are just 5 minutes outside time, but I think we did good. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate our speakers, we appreciate our panelists. We appreciate you that logged on and joined us. Thank you for that. The winners too will surely get in touch with you to claim your prizes. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Isioma, and thank you everyone for attending. The survey will be coming up immediately after this. We will really appreciate if you all can complete the survey. It will help us to do more and put together a better workshop. So we'd like to hear more from you. So please, we'll appreciate if all of us can try to complete the survey. Thank you very much. And do have a blessed day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.